Telling us it's
And-
recording.
And I should share my screen.
Got it. Yes.
Can you see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, tonight your audio and video is good. Last month it was lagging.
But
Willkommen.
here we go.
There's Mike. Justin. Flegel.
Hello, everybody. Please make sure your microphones are muted. And we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Since this is the first meeting since the time has changed to daylight time, people may be still a little bit off kilter, so we're just going to give them another 2 minutes or so. As we're waiting to get started, I'll let you know that the entire presentation tonight is really designed to make sure that we are giving you a kind of a complete story. We want to do that every month to give you information that's not only useful now, but that ties together month to month. So I'm hopeful that this will be useful for you. We're also going to make certain that you're aware that we have a brand new wildfire survey, which will go up next week, which is a really important thing to take because that's what gives us data to give to our fire department partners and to FEMA and some of the other folks that are very interested in what we're doing down here, including CAL FIRE as an example. So I hope that you find tonight to be useful. 1 minute and we'll get started. Carl, you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So welcome, everybody. My name is David Barrett from MySafe LA, and we are delighted to have you joining us tonight for our Fire Safe Council meeting for March 2024. Just before we get started, a couple things, a little bit of housekeeping. We're recording this for educational use. We don't sell this or make any other kind of commercial use of what we do in these meetings, but they're designed as an educational and interactive format. It's really important, however, that throughout the course of the meeting that everyone understand that what we're doing here is trying to help people. And so please be polite. And if there are things for us to talk about where you may disagree with what we're saying or something, that's great, that's fine. But this is not the venue to do that. So you can reach out to myself or Carl Ginsberg or Dante Cornejo or one of our folks to have that discussion separately, and we'll make ourselves available for that. But as we're working through our presentation tonight, please make sure that you keep proper decorum and civility in mind. This is going to be a really good, fun adventure tonight, I think, and we're going to have a lot to share that hopefully you'll all find to be very useful. If you have questions from the interim or there are things you want to learn, we're going to talk a little bit more about some updates, but wildfirela.org, www.wildfirela.org is where you can go to get the latest information from us related to wildfire in Southern California. So let's quickly talk about tonight's agenda. So a couple of opening remarks. We're going to make some progress announcements on the program and let you hear from one of our Homeowners Association presidents. We have a fire insurance update. One of the things that we've talked about is to make sure that everyone knows that every month we will be talking about insurance. We will be giving you information that can kind of hopefully over time lead us down the path towards better insurance, more reasonably priced insurance, and wider availability. We're going to talk about something interesting, which is, I guess, as I said, linked into the overall storytelling, which is what vegetation species is most involved in wildfire. A lot of people don't seem to know what that is. And I think it's going to tie into not only our history discussion tonight, but overall what we're concerned about relative to wildfire in Southern California. We have a guest presentation tonight. Mike Thayer is a wildfire mitigation expert and also very experienced in the world of insurance. In his role tonight, he'll be talking about the organization that he's been collaborating with for some time, Allied Defense, and the process of hardening your home. He also has one of his colleagues, April Schwartz, on the call tonight. So we want to make sure that you understand some of the things that can be done to make certain that you're able to harden your home and the reasons why it's so important. After that, we're going to talk about the Oakland firestorm from 1991. I actually was in Northern California that weekend and was unable to fly home because my flight was scheduled out of Oakland and the flights were canceled in that afternoon, evening because of the significant wind and smoke. So I ended up spending the night in a smoky hotel room in Oakland. I think this is going to be a very interesting discussion because that firestorm, which killed dozens of people, we want to ask the question, could it happen here? And then we'll talk about some hot topics before we adjourn for the night. As we always try and do, these meetings are designed to be no more than 90 minutes in length. We really appreciate your time, the fact that you're willing to spend some time with us to see what we're doing and why and how. And it's very important as you learn from these things that you share with your neighbors and with other folks the value of this so that we can have other people come and pay attention. This also will be the first Fire Safe Council virtual town hall that we will not only record the audio, but the video. And so we'll make all of that available. So if you know people that aren't able to attend tonight or have to leave early, they'll be able to see all of this in its entirety in about a week or so. So let's get started then, moving on with announcements on progress. I'd like to turn it over to Carl Ginsberg, one of our wildfire coordinators for Los Angeles. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on. Carl?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, David. Well, as we have been want to do, we are continuing to add additional homeowners associations to our group. We're now working with an excess of 30 different homeowners associations. We've been making excellent progress on some of them, which we'll talk about in a minute. Also, part of our mission is to keep up to date and meet with bureau commanders and the fire department around the city. The city has 4 bureaus. We have found that, as usual, the fire department switches people around quite often. So we have to keep up with the change of staff and reintroduce ourselves and make a plan and organize with each of those bureau commanders as they move in and out, which we've done in a few of those in the last couple of weeks. The bottom line is that the LAFD is a partner of ours. They're completely in line with the efforts that we're trying to push forth with Fire Safe Council and Firewise, and of course, it makes everything easier to do when you have an organization like the LAFD behind you. Before we go on, I want to introduce Dante Cornejo. We found that the county and the city was too large for one, which was me, to completely cover. So we brought in an expert. And let me introduce Dante, and he'll tell you a little bit of his history, and you'll understand why he's so important to our organization.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dante Cornejo. I'm working alongside Carl as a county coordinator and a city coordinator for the California Fire Safe Council. A little bit of my background: I'm currently in school with getting my bachelor's in fire administration, and then been an EMT for 5 years, and then also these past 2 years I was a former wildland firefighter. spending some of that time season with the Palomar Hot Shots. So with that, just my knowledge of wildland firefighting and just vegetation fires and forest fires, and knowing how to mitigate those and better prepare and better to defend your homes is something that I've brought forth with MySafe LA, and just being able to spread that knowledge and education out to the communities has been a big help.
Thank you. So tonight, you know, we've been working with a lot of homeowners association, but tonight we want to talk about Brentwood and highlight them. We were at their annual homeowners association meeting last week, and we presented them with a certificate from, or actually the city did, Councilwoman Park presented a certificate to Thelma Waxman, who is a powerhouse of an organizer when it comes to protecting a neighborhood. Her homeowners association and her committee, her fire safe committee up in Brentwood has been, we've been working with them continuously since early last year. We put on a very successful Firewise and fire safety preparedness fair with them. Over 200 people attended. We talked to them about defensive space. We talked to them about home hardening. There was information on insurance, different agencies and different businesses that can help in the move towards a fire safe community. And we've decided that the success was so terrific, and the reaction from the populace was so great that we're going to expand that into other areas of the city, and we're planning those now. But on to Thelma Waxman, her committee is unique. They're very, very dedicated. They've done all the work that's necessary to become certified as a fire safe council, and we're going to be continuing to work with them throughout to make sure that everything that needs to be put in place is put in place. And at some point, they'll be able to use that certification to get some grant money to help out their neighborhood. Thelma, do you have anything you'd like to comment on, please?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I would just like to thank MySafe LA, because without you, I don't think we could do this. Actually, I know we couldn't do this. I think individually, we all knew after we were evacuating for the Getty fire that we had to do more for ourselves. But as a community, I think with your help, I think we're going to actually be able to help everyone within our boundaries. So thank you very much for all you're doing. And I look forward to continuing this relationship for a lot of years.
Thank you, Thelma. What else? We've been doing home assessments in order to certify homeowners associations for Fire Safe Council, and we found some homes that are in good shape. We found some homes that are in bad shape. We found some homes that are in terrible shape. So there's a challenge out there. Our aim is to get the homeowners in all of these neighborhoods to protect their homes using defensible space and hardening their homes. And part of our job is to teach them how to do it. You're going to learn more about that when we have our speaker in a little while. But in most cases, it doesn't take a lot to make your home safer. To move flammable things away from your home and create defensive space is not a big project in most cases. And we hope that everybody in all these neighborhoods will adopt those kinds of rules to make sure that should there be another fire in the future, their homes will survive. We're working also with this list of homeowners association among the many others that we have. So Bel Air, Brentwood, Pacific Palisades, et cetera, and we'll be doing preparedness fairs in many of these areas as time goes on throughout the rest of the year.
All right. Thank you very much, Carl.
Thank you, David.
Let's give you a brief website update as we move on. Most of you are familiar with wildfirela.org. You can go to it directly, or you can access it through the mysafela.org website. Either way, we continue to work on the website environment to make sure that it remains not only relevant, but that it expands as we move forward. We are implementing a new membership process where individuals can become members of the Wildfire Alliance in LA. It's free and it will give you access to a lot of home safety materials, specific things that we don't just distribute randomly, discounts on various types of inspections if you need them. We want to make sure that you're able to figure out exactly how insurance works. One of the things that we've learned over the last year in dealing with all of these HOAs is people want to know, well, what's the difference between a fire safe council and an NFPA Firewise site, and which one should I pick? Or I'm not part of a homeowners association, so what should I do? So when you come to the website now, if you click on the Ready page, you'll see there's a decision tree. It says, what should I do relative to insurance? You just click on that and then answer some questions as you go along, and the web environment will actually direct you to the right solution. So whether you need grants or whether you don't need grants, whether you're just a group of homes or you're actually an organized homeowners association, such as the Brentwood Homeowners Association, you'll be able to actually track through that and figure out what the best solution is for you. We have some new mapping coming. We're going to have a map that shows where all of the LA area fire safe councils and Firewise USA sites are located and what the contacts are. Sometimes being able to talk to your neighbors or other organizations that are nearby is something that is helpful to you. This really is a kind of a village-oriented solution. The more people that participate, the more people who aren't participating are likely to change their minds and become participants. So we're very excited about making sure that we continue all of this information forward. I would say that this decision tree about insurance is really, really helpful, and we're excited to see people using it. We just introduced it this past Monday, and it's already getting a lot of use. Okay, let's move on to insurance update. As we have told everyone, and we continue to say it, and we're telling you tonight, we're very interested in making sure that we stay right on top of what's going on with insurance. For our folks from Allied Defense who are also very involved in the insurance world in terms of knowing what, how, why, and where, we cover this every month, so we're not going to talk about some of the things which probably seem important to you. Either we haven't talked about it yet, or we've already talked about it numerous times in the past. But we want to talk about the FAIR plan, since that's something that everyone is in many ways limited to. It's the only thing that you can probably do. They are overwhelmed. They are completely saturated right now, and that's something to be concerned with. But at the same time, you don't want to lose the opportunity to understand that if this is your last or only resort in the state, that's what it's for. 12,000 policies were written in January of this year. 15,000 policies were written in February of this year, and they are straight lining 18,000 for March. So not sure if they'll actually get there, but that's a lot of policies to underwrite. And it is now the primary provider. So if you go to an insurance broker and say, hey, I want to buy insurance, they're likely just to bring up the FAIR plan as the first choice. And you're going to have to remind them, well, I have to get turned down someplace else first before I go to the FAIR plan. It used to take about 30 to 45 days to underwrite a policy with a FAIR plan. Some of these policies are taking more than 90 days now, so you have to keep that in mind as well. But this chart will show you a little bit about how things are changing with the FAIR plan. There are now more than 350,000 policies in force. The insurance industry calls those PIFs or PIFs. It's a 22% increase over last year. Almost 1,000 people a day submit an application to the FAIR plan in the state of California. And registered agents, brokers, and contacts, there were only 9,000 of them 3 years ago. Now there's 54,000. So it's becoming something that's really significant. But this chart on the right is really worth taking a look at as it relates to wildfire. You can see at the bottom, we have in the columns facing up that those are years, September of 2019 through September of 2023. And the FAIR plan went from 154,000 and change policies in force to near the end of 2023, 320,000. And now we're at 350,000 in 2024. And at the bottom, you can see where the yellow letters are and the little red lines, those are all of the other insurance companies with their policies in force related to wildfire in California. So you can see that even though the number has continued to go up, even with insurance companies such as Allied and State Farm and others leaving the state, and State Farm is coming back, there's not that many policies. And so this is a huge issue. And what we're really concerned about is the exposure, right? This is all well and good unless there is a tragic fire. If there is a wildfire that breaks out anywhere in the state that consumes significant number of homes, 10, 20, 30, not a big deal from the insurance perspective, but 4 or 5 or 600, well, that could be really significant because the FAIR Plan's exposure right now, as we're looking at coming up on April of this year, is over $311 billion. It was that way at the end of the year, so it's probably more than that now. But just back in 2018, not that long ago, it was only 50 billion. So this is something that is very concerning to the Cal OES, Cal Fire, the governor of the state, and all of the folks that are looking at this. And there's some consideration being given to actually creating a bond measure to make sure that there's proper finances in place to support the FAIR Plan in the event that there is a tragic fire. So we want to make sure that we keep this moving forward. That's kind of important stuff after the first couple of months of this year to know. The FAIR Plan is starting to do webinars throughout the state. And if you have an opportunity to join one, we'll make sure that we post those on our website so you can keep on track of it. They're increasing their staff, using a lot of contractors now for the first time. They've provided a series of new payment policies. So now you can use a credit card, for example, to pay your monthly policy bill. And they've implemented Zesty Artificial Intelligence, or Zesty AI, which is a risk analysis. And this leads into the last important thing I want to share about this, which is huge. And we're going to dive into this significantly in May or June. And that is that the whole mechanism of selling insurance in California is changing. Up until September 21st of 2023, insurance policies were sold based on one very specific thing: the past. What was damaged? What was destroyed? What fire occurred? And it was based on those factual occurrences that insurance policies were rated and priced out and sold and underwritten ultimately. Now, as we move forward, as of the governor's declarations and Ricardo Lara, the state insurance commissioner's policy plan initiated on the 21st of September in 2023, now insurance companies are going to no longer be using that format to sell insurance. Instead, they're looking at forward projections. What is the likelihood that there's going to be a fire? What is the likelihood that we're going to have homes burned down? What is the likelihood that we're going to have damages? And this is a significant change. It's one that we need to understand better. There's a lot of confusion even within the industry itself about what that means and how it works. So it's extremely important that we stay on top of this and we share that information with you. So we're going to dedicate probably half of one of our town halls to the evolving insurance thing. We're going to see if we can get Ricardo Lara himself to come back and talk to us. If not him, then one of his deputies. But this is an important issue for everyone because we're no longer looking at the past. We're looking at the future. And from our perspective, when we say looking at the future, we're talking, in our view, about mitigation and threat reduction and improved insurance policies, not the idea that someone could guess there would be a fire and force you to pay for it. So on our reporting, just as a reminder, monthly updates, just like this one, to tell you what's going on. We're maintaining active engagement with state and not only state elected officials, but insurance companies, not from a lobbying perspective, but from an educational and informational perspective. We're tracking the progress that individual insurance companies are making. I can tell you right now that I'm going to be spending a week in Sacramento near the end of this coming month, meeting with all of the various folks that are related to what I just spoke about, so that we can have a really good, informative session on this. It's very important to our organization, to our fire department partners, and ultimately to all of you as homeowners. So we're on it, and we're going to maintain that continuing forward motion related to insurance. So here's an interesting little piece, a little sidebar for us in tonight's town hall presentation. wildfire risk. Here's an issue related to wildfire risk that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, and that is a question. What type of vegetation is the most likely common culprit in dangerous wildfires? It could be anywhere in the world, but what we're talking about specifically is here in Los Angeles, the greater Los Angeles, Santa Monica Mountains, Hollywood Hills, Angeles National Forest, and so on. What is this most common culprit in fires, right? Because what we hear about on the national stage is forest fires. What we hear about on the national stage are homes burning, but we don't necessarily hear about what it is that's actually the underlying kindling that makes all of this work. Here's a clue. This is from the Woolsey fire, as it was burning close to the coast. And the answer is little arsonist grasses. Bethany Bradley from the University of Massachusetts is adamant in her research that grass is the #1, not only ignition opportunity for wildfire, but it is the most destructive component in wildfire, much more so than trees and other sorts of things. So grass is what we're talking about. And arsonist grasses, if we're going to use that term, have a number of things related to them. So there are native grasses, which are local right here, indigenous to the state of California, but there are also invasive grasses because grass moves quickly. Grass survives almost any place that you could imagine, and it grows very quickly. So if you have a hillside that's burned over, you'll see it covered with grass just weeks later. Rainy weather promotes the growth of grass, right? We've all seen rain over the last couple of months, and the hillsides are beautiful. They're green, they look terrific. The grass will then go dormant when the rains, April, May, when it stops. But you need to remember that when it gets warm, wet grass can be dried out in a matter of an hour or two, depending on whether the slope is in alignment with the sun or not, and also how much heat and how low the humidity is. But in any event, in one day, absolutely, grass can be dried out and become kindling. Grass fires spread faster than people can run if there's wind to drive it along. But most importantly, relative to this overall issue of wildfires in California, when a tree dies, grass moves in behind it. So we have a significant number of dead trees in the state, but they're surrounded by the detritus from the dead tree and from grass. And this state is the most at risk relative to wildfire grass in the country, even more so than Montana and Colorado and some of the other states where there's a lot of mountainous vegetation growth. We have a significant issue here related to grass, and it's going to play into some of the other things that we're talking about tonight. I'll leave you with this thought. 79% of the homes that have been destroyed by wildfire in California were destroyed by grass and vegetation-driven fire, not by forest, not by other types of ignition sources. It's extremely high to think about that, right? 79% is a big number. And if we can take steps, that's what we're talking about. That's what Brentwood's doing. That's what other homeowners associations do. We're looking at reducing the ignitability of homes and slowing the pace of wildfire through someone's property. If we can slow the pace of wildfire, that will give area firefighters the opportunity to mount structure defense strategies and then implement those tactics to protect those homes. And if your home's ignitability has been reduced, all the better. So another example of the Woolsey fire of grass burning and moving very quickly. So it's time for a special presentation tonight. It's going to feature Mike Thayer. Mike is going to talk to you about how you can actually get home hardening done in your environment and what they can do to help you. I think it's really important that we listen to Mike, and that we'll have a question and answer session near the end of it. And Mike, we can set you up to share your screen.
Great.
You should be able to now.
All right, get this situated here. And it's saying you're still sharing. You're gonna have to, there we go. And quick. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of tune here. I don't know why I got skipped to the very middle of it. So thank you for having me on here. Are you able to see the screen okay?
We can see all of the slides and your next slide and so on. You might want to go into a play mode so we can see just the a large
Should
screen
just
version.
be, yeah. There we go.
Perfect.
Yep. All right. Thank you for having us. I'm Mike Thayer with Allied Disaster Defense. Previous to joining Allied, as David mentioned, I was with AIG Insurance as a wildfire protection unit, wildfire mitigation specialist, where we performed inspections and also responded during wildfires to try to better protect homes. So we're here today to talk about what our company does and how it's relative to everybody here and the fire issues. So we're going to talk about the old standard versus the new standard for fire resilience first. You know, it used to just be your 100 foot of brush clearance was okay. But after 2017 and 18, we found out that a lot of homes that had that clearance still burned. And it was that 0 to 5 foot critical zone that was causing the damage to the homes. Embers landing in this area or on the house, any combustibles in this area, that's what was causing the damage. So the Insurance Institute for Business Home Safety came up with the Wildfire Prepared Home Standard, and that's kind of taking off as we see through the insurance industry as the new standard. And what I mean by that is obviously the wildfire prepared home, if you're familiar with it, it has the strictest standards. But if you look across the insurance landscape, in order to get any kind of discount or even eligibility, those standards are pretty standard across the board as far as what you need to do to meet those standards or you get any kind of discount. For instance, for the California Fair Plan, individually those counts for discounts, but very small. To get the largest discount, all mitigation measures need to be taken care of, including enclosing eaves, which is a little bit cost prohibitive. So, you know, the policyholders have a role to play in the insurance solution. It's protectable interest, building that prevention and mitigation into your home to be able to keep insurance and look at other carriers down the line being able to insure you should something happen. So what we do at Allied, we have our core services, wildfire risk assessments, home hardening solutions, vegetation management, long-term fire retardant application, and wildfire monitoring and evacuation plans. So the risk assessments, and I'm not going to go too much into it because I know you guys do your own, but we have experienced firefighters that do assessments. We also work closely with IBHS. As far as certifying for the Wildfire Prepared Home Standard, we've been able to certify 9 homes so far for our clients that had farmers insurance, and those folks were able to keep their insurance by meeting the standard. So looking at a home from a risk standpoint, it's more than just the vegetation. You know, the insurance company may have had them take out these Italian cypress trees. However, they weren't looking at the vents at all. So all these homes had 1/4 inch mesh screening in their attic vents. This was down on the coastal fire in Laguna Niguel. Embers came up from below, went into the attic. What's in your attic spaces, combustible boxes, storage, insulation, exposed wood. 20 homes on this ridgetop burned without any of the vegetation on the property burning. It was all from the inside out. So coming up with those home hardening solutions to prevent these type of disasters from happening. So when we talk about home hardening, we talk about ember resistant vents to prevent the ember intrusion into the attic spaces. We talk about gutter guards to prevent leaf debris build up in the gutters. As far as the leaf debris is very susceptible for embers landing in there, igniting that and getting underneath the roofing material as well. So those are two of the major home hardening solutions that we provide. But it's more than that as well. As David mentioned, some of them could be a little bit more complex, such as enclosing the eaves. We have general contractors within our company that are qualified to do those type of services as far as the closing eaves. Coming up with replacing windows to more dual pane or tempered, we can do that as well. Another thing we've looked at too in helping out is doing the screening underneath your decks. So part of the IBHS standard for decks, anything 4 feet high has to be screened in. 4 feet high or lower has to be screened in to prevent any leaf debris or pine needle debris to get in there and prevent embers to get in there. So we work with a vendor called Wildfire Defense Mesh as far as installing to screen in those porch and deck areas to prevent that buildup and prevent ember intrusion. So vegetation management, it's about protecting your home by the zone. You know, most critically, we talk about that 0 to 5 foot zone and making separation to eliminate those fire pathways to the structure itself. So when we go out and look at these properties, we're looking for all the different hazards in the vegetation and how to break that up and still be appealing to the homeowner. And then if we need to do the services, we can provide that as well as far as actually doing the vegetation management. We have contractors available to do the mitigation on site to help better protect those homes. So why is the 0 to 5 foot zone so critical? This is a video from a test that IBHS did showing the home on the right has a rock base within 5 feet and a metal fence. The home on the left has bark mulch going all the way up to the home. Very little vegetation, but the wood fence goes all the way to the home as well. In this time-lapse video, you see how the fire will travel without interruption to the structure itself. And why they do it this way is they show what can actually happen on wildfire and what does happen on wildfire when there's no firefighter intervention. The reality is there's not enough firefighters, there's not enough fire trucks to be at every house to try to protect it. The best way to protect your home is make it as defensible as it stand on its own from these wildfires. This is a very realistic demonstration. Embers landing on bark mulch and igniting it happens all the time. I was on a Woolsey fire and we found bark mulch and railroad ties burning still for like 9 days after the fire passed. So if those go unchecked, they could still travel to home and burn homes down days after the main fire passes. So something else we do once you get the home hardening done, once you get the vegetation management done, we can also apply long-term fire retardant. In this example here, this is what happens when it's dropped from an airplane. They were able to, you see the red dye on the ground, that's where they boxed the fire in, kept it from spreading. However, we're able to use a clear Phos-Check spray to spray on the unmanaged vegetation on our properties. You know, usually it's brush, it could be native grasses. David did a great demonstration talking about how volatile grasses can be. If there's a large area that you can't manage, the Phos-Check is a good backup layer to have. It will last about 6 months without significant rainfall, which is normally a typical summer in California, absent of a hurricane that we had last year. So it's a good backup option to have. Again, home hardening first, defensible space, and then you look at the add-ons. The other things we can be involved in. The picture on the left is from the Woolsey fire as far as evacuations go. The picture on the right is from the Camp Fire. Both in 2018, these photos were about 24 hours apart from each other, and both taken about 11:30 in the morning. And you can see how dark it is on the right-hand side as people are trying to evacuate. So something we work on with homeowners is developing an evacuation plan. This is nothing new. It's similar to Ready, Set, Go. Some of you may already be familiar with these programs, but we actually build it for them. A lot of times that's the issue is people they know of it, they should be doing it, but we'll provide it for you, providing those two exits, evacuation areas, meetup points for your family, and working to best evacuate in a safe manner and ahead of time. And part of the evacuating ahead of time is getting the wildfire monitoring alerts. We're able to send text messages to our clients, letting them know if a fire's nearby. Pre-evacuation notices, we could give safety tips as far as how to prepare and evacuate And then as fire gets closer, let them know, and that way they can evacuate and not be in the situation that we saw in those previous slides, as far as being in that long line of cars trying to get out. So what's the fire look like in real time, and what else can be done for these structures? So this home here had pretty good brush clearance done below, minimal fuels, but however, somebody had planted juniper bushes outside, probably as privacy screening. Once the juniper bushes get ignited, you can see the flame lights coming off of them and the radiant heat that's coming off and how it's melting the siding on the home. So that's something to keep in mind. This bush was 40 feet away. When we talk about that 0 to 5 foot zone, this home probably wouldn't have a chance if it had been in that 5 foot zone. So looking what you can do for these homes for extra layer of protection. Again, home hardening first, vegetation management, everything else is icing on the cake, as our friend Rich Snyder likes to say. So we have vendors that we work with as far as home sprinkler systems, fire suppression systems. They do foam, they can be automated, they can be manual. Some insurance carriers actually require it. Some will provide a discount if they're installed. Again, it's not something we always recommend. It's not a one-stop solution. It's not to be used instead of the home hardening and vegetation management, just another option, a tool in the toolbox. Another one to think about in those exposures, if you think about that video, you saw the radiant heat that was being put on those windows as that vegetation was burning. Something with extreme exposures to brush at hillsides, automatic fire doors and for windows, something that could deflect the radiant heat. But more importantly, what we're seeing now with these high wind fire events is a lot of debris flying through the air, windows getting punctured by debris, getting cracked and getting embers and smoke and everything else into the home and burning from the inside out. So again, not a solution for everybody, but in extreme cases, we're able to work with vendors in installing those as well. Portable fire pumps is something else we can help out with as far as commercial grade. These are not the real cheap ones. These are the professional ones that we can help set up, install, train the homeowner. But the most important training is, be able to know to leave it for the firefighters. In conjunction with the pool pump, something that could be done ahead of time, pre-evacuation, if necessary, the use of fire gels. This is something we used at AIG on our engines. We use thermogel. It can be sprayed on structure, can be sprayed on vegetation ahead of time. It has about an 8 to 24 hour window of effectiveness before it dries out. But again, just another tool in the toolbox, and it will stop the fire if the conditions allow. But most importantly, those are there for the firefighters. So as a firefighter, if we have one fire truck assigned to one street and we're driving by a scene, which ones we're going to want to defend, we can actually offload somebody to help defend one of these homes if they already have the pump, if they already have the gel, because we don't have to unload our hose. We don't have to unload our tools. It makes being able to use a spread of effectiveness a lot better. So having these type of signs, if you have any kind of mitigation in place that will help firefighters, at the end of the day, you want to make your home as attractive as possible for a firefighter. And in doing that, you're also making it as attractive for insurance carriers as well. It's the same mitigation that they're looking for is what firefighters are looking for. So we also do public education. April Schwartz, who's on here right now, she runs our inspection team and manages the home hardening. And then Rich Snyder, who's our wildfire expert, he's was with Sierra Madre Fire as a fire marshal for 30 years, wildfire expert. So they do a lot of training for Fire Safe Council, HOAs, brokers, insurance agents. We'll do FireWise days, anything that people want to learn more about wildfire about. So our staff comes from fire departments all across the Southland, over 250 years of experience. Guys that have been fighting wildfire for years, know what that looks like on the ground, knows what the fire behavior looks like, know what the fuel types are, know how to best protect home. So that's our team that we have in place to inspect, but also do the home hardening work as well. So this is our current service area. We cover almost all the Southland. We also operate, it's not relevant here, but we also work up in Northern California and wildfire inspections in Colorado. We'd like to be able to fulfill all those needs throughout the Southland where we can, and to be able to better protect people. And that's about all I have. Have any questions? Real quick right here. So on the left, if you want to scan that QR code, that will take you to our website, showing all our risk mitigation solutions. So on top of wildfire, we also do earthquake shut-off valves, water shut-off valves, anything to mitigate risk. We handle as a one-stop shop. And then the QR code on the right, our boss, O.P. Alvarez, does this podcast called All Things Wildfire. He has some great wildfire experts on there, insurance specialists, all types of people, tech people. So it's a good little knowledge base to learn a little bit more about wildfire every time they have one of these podcasts. They have some great people on there. And that's about it for me. If anybody has any questions, I can answer, or April maybe answer for you as well.
Okay. So if anyone has questions, we would love to give you an opportunity to ask them of Mike. We would ask that you raise your hand using the raise hand option of your screen, and we will then be able to see you and forward you to be able to talk to Mike, or even to April if you want. So if anyone has questions, we'll take a moment or so to let you think about what you might want to say, and then please raise your hand and we'll be able to acknowledge you. Okay, Janet, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question?
I have a question about the gutter guards, because I heard conflicting information about gutter guards. Some people think they attract too much debris. They're hard to clean out. They don't allow rain runoff. What's your thinking about gutter guards? You mentioned those as one of the things to protect your home.
Right. So we only install what's called a micro mesh style gutter guard. The ones that you find at Home Depot, the openings on there are normally too large, where they allow dirt and also pine needles through, which kind of defeats the purpose. So the micro mesh style has 16th inch mesh screen, stainless steel. They also have a very rigid support system in there, so they can't really be damaged by falling branches as well. So those type of ones are very effective as far as keeping debris and out of there, and keeping the needles, pine needles as well, leaf debris. But depending on the vendor, the main thing to have is a non-combustible one. You've seen plastic ones, we've seen foam ones, which they say they have a fire retardant. Those don't work very well at all. The fire retardant wears off, and the foam is actually very flammable itself. So it's about finding the right one. We generally work with a couple of different vendors as far as supplying the right material and get the right fit for the home. And then they have to be installed correctly too. I've seen some pretty bad installs where you want the angle to come off the roof edge and have a little bit of angle off, so that way any leaf debris or pine needles will actually shed off with a little bit of wind. But I've seen them where they actually camber back towards the home, and that will trap it in between the vent and the roof edge itself, and that's not very effective. So it's about the installation and the type of material, but they can be very effective from preventing that leak to build up for sure.
And one thing before we move on to Sarah Jane, if your home was built before the year 2000, it's possible that you have rain gutters along the edges of your home that are too small. So the gutter size itself is an important thing to keep in mind, particularly if you're trying to get gutter guards that are made for more modern gutters. So that's something to be aware of overall. Sarah Jane, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question of Mike?
Yes, I know that there would be probably a lot of difference with different homes, but roughly ballpark, if I were to call up your company and want you to come out for an initial inspection, what do you charge?
Right, great question. I was kind of gonna get back into that about talking about the gutter guards. So our inspection is $500. However, if there's home hardening to be done, that will transfer to those home hardening costs as well. And at the same time we're doing the inspection, we're also doing a count for the number of vents, measuring for the vents, measuring for the gutter guards, make sure we have the correct. So that way we can provide a quote as well as the report. And our report is an in-depth report that shows the photos, where the photos were taking around the structure itself, and what mitigation actions need to be done. So it's very thorough, and we were able to walk the client through step by step as far as what needs to be done. But the cost is $500, but can be applied to the home hardening.
And I just want to add to that. Like Mike said, that's for a full inspection, full assessment of your property and the vents and the gutters. However, there are cases where, people just want a single quote and they might have their measurements already, or they might have photos. And in a lot of cases, I'm able to kind of give them a free estimate, ballpark estimate via email or over the phone when they do have these things already. So it is possible, that it is possible to have that simplified a little bit as well. If somebody in the past, if somebody has asked, hey, I don't want the whole assessment. The fire department already gave me my assessment or inspection. I already know what I have to do. I just want you guys to come out here and, give me a vent, look at my vents, tell me how many I have, or, or take a look at my gutters, tell me what I need to do. And in those cases, when it's a very, single subject, simplified version of an assessment that we need to do, we won't charge the full 500, we'll charge half. So, there's a lot of ways around that. We're here to help people. That's the main goal, is we're here to complete the circle for whatever home hardening services need to be done. If we do need to go out there and assess the property, we will let you know, but we're all also very, honest and forgiving with people who just want to get that estimate and give us the information they have as well. So there's a lot of different options there.
And that also includes the vegetation, yes? Looking at the vegetation?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we could, yes, our report includes the vegetation. It's the entire property.
All right. Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, as MySafe LA is the Fire Safe Council for all of Los Angeles County, and we're a nonprofit organization, we do all of that for free. So there's no charge from us to do exactly what you just heard about.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, and to April's point too, a lot of times we'll get the ask because they had a letter from the insurance company saying install ember-resistant vents, and that's where those certain cases normally come into play, where we could just provide the quote for the ember-resistant vents, because that's what they're looking to do.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so let's move on, and we're going to get into our history section, which I think has some real relevance to Southern California. And hopefully this will tie what we've spoken about, both what April and Mike were talking about from Allied Defense and what we were talking about a little earlier with the danger of grass, as well as some of the other issues. We're going to talk about the Oakland firestorm. This is a fire that took place in 1991, but in many ways is just as concerning today, not only here, but still in Oakland. So the statistics that you need to be aware of: 25 confirmed fatalities. Several people were never located afterwards, and so they can only say 25 confirmed, but there may have been 27 as 2 people just were no longer around and were never found. 2,843 single-family structures and 437 apartments and condos were destroyed. 1,500 plus acres burned, and $2.89 billion in 2022 dollars in terms of damage, about 1.35 billion in 1991 dollars. And this was a rekindled grass fire. So again, the cause was related to a grass fire. So the big question is, before we even dive in any deeper, is could this happen in Los Angeles? Could it happen here? And so here's the Oakland Hills. It's a really good example of the type of vegetation that's there, what the hillside structures look like. Some of them are 70 years old, some of them are 70 days old. But this is Oakland Hills. So now taking a look here, this is the Hollywood Hills. And if you think it looks similar, it's because it does. It's extremely similar, same construction type, same vegetation, same windy roads, same climate for most of the year, which is Mediterranean. So these environments are very much the same. So understanding this particular wildfire is extremely important to our overall ability to understand what the risks are and what the safety actions are related to wildfire mitigation. So the fire started on October the 19th, 1991. Firefighters fought a 5-acre fire on a very steep hillside. And by Saturday night, they thought it was over. They thought it was done. They even spent several hours doing something called cold trailing, where they're turning the dirt over and looking for any kind of embers. And they thought that it was all good. And they actually cleared the incident and went back to their fire stations. That was apparently not a good thing for them to do. These images are all from the 20th of October, the next day. So the fire reignited as a brush fire before 11 a.m. on the 20th. It was driven by what are called Diablo winds. So everyone here in Southern California thinks of Santa Ana winds, which blow in from the desert and are hot, dry, and low humidity. The Diablo winds are exactly the same thing blowing over the hill into the Berkeley Hills and the Oakland Hills. Very, very much the same thing. And it immediately fueled rapid spread of the fire, very, very rapid spread. And within a couple of hours, the fire was actually creating its own wind, creating vortexes and little spirals that move up and down, changing direction every couple of minutes, 65-mile-per-hour gusts. And that is, when you look at all those things, that is the definition of the word firestorm. So if you're hearing us talk about firestorm, it really isn't a kind of excitable term to get people to pay attention. It's an actual term that is defined by exactly what a fire can do if it is generating its own wind and its own weather. Interestingly, the winds died down at about 9 p.m. on the 20th, and that was the end of the fire within the next day or so. So all of this destruction happened in less than 12 hours. And that's really, really important to remember, that this fire was able to move as quickly as it did, and to be as destructive and damaging as it was. A number of people died trying to leave their homes without any notification, without any proper evacuation process. A really sad situation. And if you were to, if you've heard of alarms in Los Angeles, we typically have a first alarm assignment, but then we have a greater alarm fire, and a third request for resources is a major emergency fire, and so on. But in other cities, they'll have a first alarm, second alarm, third alarm. New York will go up to a 5-alarm fire. This was the equivalent of a 107 alarm fire in terms of the number of resources that were required to come and fight the fire from all over the state and from Oregon and Washington and Arizona. And the results were what you would expect, absolute, complete devastation. You will notice in a couple of places that there are some homes that are left standing. But part of the lessons learned from a fire like this is, what does that mean? And you can actually see in the photo on the right that the white home with the tile roof was surrounded by vegetation, but there was nothing ignitable in the home itself. Those are the kinds of things that we need to think about when we're talking about home fire safety. Here's an interesting quote. I had a buddy who was a police officer from Hayward. His badge melted from the heat, but he kept walking through to help people. And Tom Grossman has remained very active in wildfire activities in the Oakland area. Lost his home there in the 1991 fire. So here's a look at the Oakland Hills today. And what's really important about this is if we're looking from 1991 all the way forward to 2024, there's a series of lessons in Oakland that have not been learned. We always talk about lessons learned. So here we have a series of lessons not learned. There have been no road improvements of any kind within the Berkeley Hills, Oakland Hills area. There are no defined evacuation routes. And evacuation is a very important topic that we're going to talk about in the May meeting, because people think, oh, I'm going to evacuate. Where do I evacuate? It's important to know your routes, but you don't want to count on them because a wildfire is out in the open, and you need to rely on fire and police to tell you if and when you should evacuate and into what direction. Interestingly enough, since that fire through this year, only 5% of homeowners in Oakland have hardened their homes. That's a terrible number. And there are a number of empty lots, often from homes that were destroyed and were not rebuilt, that are now completely overgrown with vegetation and grass. And there are still thousands of eucalyptus trees, most of them older and more brittle than they were in 1991. The Australians, which have serious wildfire issues, they have an interesting term for eucalyptus trees. They call them fire cans on a stick. And it's because they are so flammable. The area program director for the Oakland Fire Safe Council acknowledges that all of these issues are a problem because the foothills west of Oakland are in the high fire severity zone. And it is exactly the same kind of thing that we're dealing with here. Here's a look at Mandeville Canyon. And this photo was taken less than 6 months ago. And it's even greener now because of the rain we had in January and February. But come summer, our El Nino is going to turn into La Nina. The Weather Service, National Weather Service says there's about an 85% chance of that. And so by the fall, this is going to be something else other than beautiful. It's going to be fuel. And so the good news about that is that we have between now and then to take some significant action, to take action that will help us to be safer and to make our homes more resistant to wildfire. And so the best opportunity to reduce the risk here, to ensure that what happened in Oakland doesn't happen here, is to harden your home. So our number one message tonight is learn how to harden your home and think about doing it. And by the way, hardening your home can be done in steps. You can, in step 1, do all of your vents. In step 2, clear out zone 0. In step 3, do something else. So each one of these things can be done as a project. It doesn't have to all be done at once. If you do it all at once, that's a benefit, but it's not required. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money either. It's in some cases not very expensive at all. So we want to be able to help you get through that and figure out the best ways to make your home safer. Our next virtual town hall is on April the 18th. It's always the third Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. We're going to have another homeowner progress report that we share with everyone. We're going to be announcing the calendar for our wildfire safety fairs. We're going to talk about the LAFD's Fire Service Day, which takes place in May, just the day before Mother's Day. And we're going to have an important update on mobile phone use, cellular use of phones in the canyons, and what's being done to improve that type of access. And so people's fears about lack of notification and communication during a wildfire are reduced. That's also going to be important for our fire department partners, because a lot of this is going to involve AT&T's FirstNet, which is first responder oriented communications. There's some advances which will be tying Motorola radios and FirstNet phones together. So I think there's a lot of important stuff, not just for our community members like all of you here tonight, but also for our fire department partners. So before we end for the evening, I want to give you also another chance. If you've got questions about anything else, we would love to talk about that. So if you've got a question on any topic, raise your hand and we'll call on you and see what's going on. And if everyone's good, everyone's good. Sarah Jane, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, I have another question. Last time we were talking about the movement that was going on to get rid of landlines and how important it is to have a choice of communication in the hills and in very high fire, areas. And I wondered if there was an update on that as far as what we can do to try to get the phone company to change their mind about getting rid of landlines.
We're going to be talking about that next month, as I just said. So we're gathering all the information. I just met with AT&T on Tuesday of this week. I have meetings with Verizon and T-Mobile coming up, and also with Spectrum, which does a lot of landline stuff. So we're working on it, but we'll have our information to share in our next meeting. Brenda.
All right, so
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brenda. I'm with the California Department of Insurance. And I just wanted to share, there will be, just from our department, there will be a public workshop on April 23rd. So stakeholders can go ahead and provide input for what we call the catastrophic modeling, which is what you were mentioning previously, David. So I will post it on the chat for those that want to register and provide their inputs.
Yeah, if you want to put two things to do, Brenda. One, you could put something in the chat if you want, but more importantly, if you could send Carl or myself or Dante an email with that information, we'll distribute it to everyone.
Absolutely. I'll send you our consumer alert we sent out.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. Very important add-on to our meeting tonight. Does anyone else have a question before we wrap it up for the evening? All right. Well, we've got someone else with a raised hand. Pat Bates. Hi, Pat. Why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question? Pat, have you got a question? Having trouble unmuting yourself? Okay, Pat, what we'd like you to do is in the chat, you'll see some email addresses, Pat, and you can send your question via email to Carl or to Dante, and we'll take care of it that way. I'd like to thank everybody for being a part of our event this evening. It's really important that we share this information with everyone. Thank you for being here. Stay safe, and we'll see you next month. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.